Hey folks, it's Old Gandy here and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to go over a build I came up with in Season 3 that I think you're really going to like. Wonderful pros to this build are you can start at a very, very early level, as soon as level 6, and you won't be changing out any of your skills from the time you start to the time you get to endgame in a running monolith. So you don't have to do any respecs, which is pretty hard to find these days. If you're trying to get a build that's going to be online that you don't have to change, you can just play and then really enjoy the game. Now, as the name implies, this is the Hellfire Paladin build, and my goal when I made this is I wanted to be able to make something that had a lot of fire procs, and something that was fast moving, something that didn't require me to change anything once I got it going, and something I could build on as I got into endgame. Now if you look here, you can see my character, I got to level 98 with this build. So I will tell you straight up, one of the downfalls of this build is late game. It can't push corruption levels high. There probably is a way to do that, either by respecing or different gear or getting into the ward aspect of it, but I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to get some gear. I wanted to play when I had time to play, and I wanted to make a build for the community that you could start and just play to the end. And I was able to achieve everything I wanted to this season. With this character, I was pretty comfortable running around 200, 215 corruption, but that's really where I stopped with it. Just because you die too much, and it's just not worth the pain that you would have dealing with that. So let's get into the skills and let's see how it looks from that.
Okay guys, let's get into the skills. The first skill we're going to be unlocking and using is Warpath. We actually have access to this at level 2. We can use it at level 2, but I don't recommend using it until we get to level 4, which will then unlock one of our skill slots. We can put it in and get some points to get the mana cost down per channel. So the first 2 points we're going to put into this, we're going to put it into Unchained, which will give us a -2 mana cost per channel per point. At this point, by the 2 points we put here, we'll be at -4. Our next skill we're going to put some in is Reckless Spin. We're going to put 1 point into this. There's only 1 point we can put into it. It will get the channel cost to -6. The downside is we're going to lose 30% elemental resistances, which you may think is a lot. In the beginning, it's not going to be at all, because we're really not going to take hardly any elemental damage until we start getting into the monolith system. And by the time we get there, we'll be respect out of this later through this guide. So 2 points here, 1 point here in a Reckless Spin. We are then going to work our way to the left, and we're going to try to get over here to Winds of Justice. We're going to get there as fast as we can. So we're going to put 1 point into Quicksilver Wind, which will give us 10% move speed while using Warpath per point. So we'll have 1 point here. We'll have 1 point in the Gorebringer, which gives our bleed chance and bleed duration plus 10% per point. We're going to put 1 point there. 1 point into Earth Scorcher. This will now convert this bleed chance to fire chance and fire duration. So that's what we're after with this Hellfire build. We're all about fire. So let's move on up here. Our next skill point will go into Path of Fire. We will then work our way this way, and we'll put 2 points in the Path of Heavens. Global spell damage, plus 10 per point. Huge for Smite. Smite uses spell damage. We are going to be needing as much spell damage as we can get with this build. This will give us plenty to get going. So we'll put 2 points into here so we can get down to the Winds of Justice. Now, Winds of Justice, as we're spinning in Warpath, each second we have a 25% chance per point invested in Winds of Justice. We're going to put 4 points into this. We want to be hitting everything and having 100% chance of Smite taken off per second. Going to be huge for this build. Then we're going to come back to the beginning, and we're going to put our next 3 points into Unchained. This will get our channel cost at -10. -10 is the comfort zone I've found for this build. We're going to have no mana loss whatsoever while warpathing. We'll get our next 3 points into this. After we do that, spec this point out. Now we can use this point further down the road here to move into these other skills. We don't need this anymore, and we'll have our elemental resistances back plus 30%. Huge. We'll have that all done before we get to the monolith system. But the next 2 points into Quicksilver Wind, 2 more points into Gorebringer, Path of Heavens, let's get that to 5 out of 5. And then our last 3 points in this build go to Arsenal of Flame. So as you're putting your points into this, be mindful that you're going to have 22 points once you equip, total points you can have access to for all your skills once we use the Evolution's End. So that's fairly easy to come by. We'll have that well into early into the campaign. The final 3 points we're going to put into the skill will be once we have the Exalt slammed with the +3 to Warpath. We'll put those last 3 points into that final skill, and then we're ready to rock. Now, if you have any questions, I went through this pretty fast. So if you have any questions on how we're going to do this, there will be a link down in the description for each skill that you can pull up on your second monitor or minimize that will walk you through. Let's go to the next skill. Okay, guys, our second skill we'll have access to is Lunge. Now, Lunge is what we're going to use to be able to move around the map. Downside to using Lunge is we have to have a monster in order to start it off. So we can't just teleport like a sorcerer. We have to be able to have a monster in order to be able to move across a great distance. So pretty straightforward. We'll start down the skill points we need to allocate. We're going to start off with Warrior's Renewal. This is basically going to reduce the cooldown of Lunge, which is going to be huge for us because we want to be able to lunge as much as possible to be able to move around as fast as possible. Next skill is Initiate's Onslaught. This means the final hit will have more damage and hit a larger area upon the final hit of the lunge. Next one is called a Weak. This will instantly kill monsters along the path from the monster we're targeting at a 5% or less health, which really doesn't affect much. We're not really going to have a use for this too much. We have to have this in order to get to the next skill allocation, which is going to be Holy Incursion. Now, the fun part about this, of course, we're a Smite build, and upon our final hit, it's going to hit, and it's 100% guaranteed by putting 2 points into this that we are going to hit it three mobs in that area. And if there's not, it doesn't matter. It's going to hit the mob we're targeting, and it's going to do up to 3 smites. And we're going to have smite going off from our gear and from Warpath at the same time. Once we start that back up, just more smites, the better, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're about. So our next skill allocation is going to be here. Now, this is going to be something we're going to use a lot in this build. Dawn Charge. Health gain of missing health 40% once we have 5 points into this one. So that means we get 8% per point of our health gained per missing health. So you can get some distance, say this is the mob, this is us, we can get some distance, lunge, 40% of our missing health back. And once we get another point in here, we'll have additional lunge chances, so we can actually do this to get more health back quite quickly. So we'll put 5 points into this. Our next skill we're going to go into will be Ambuscade, which lunge deals more melee damage to enemies at high health. Really just something we have to put a couple points into to unlock this. Not really something that's game-changing, but this is pretty big for us. Double Strike will be where we put our next skill point. Now, this here will give us an additional charge, but as you can see, the cooldown length has increased 15%. That's why we have 2 points here in the Warrior's Renewal. We're going to be getting 16 cooldown recovered with those 2 points, 8 per point. Our next skill point we're going to put into after we put one here is going to be able to Endless Will. Now, this will give us an additional 3% recovery speed, and we gain a little health, just enough to kind of offset the cost of Double Strike, which is why we have 3 points between these two skills, kind of giving us an additional charge for free. So after we get our point here, we're going to move over here to Blade Stream. Now, the fun thing about this Blade Stream is it allows us to do melee damage for everything between here and here. Here's a mob, here we are. That's going to take damage as we get to it. So that's kind of helpful, but we also need it to get to the end here, which is where our big help is going to be with Torchbearer. So we're going to put a point into Blade Stream. We'll put 2 points into Visceral Path. This will do more damage along the path and the final hit to the monsters in that path. 2 more points into Rough Cuts. Rough Cuts give us a bleed chance along that path, but not to the mob we're targeting, with an additional 200% bleed chance. Now, why do we need bleed chance? Well, we don't. We're going to use Torchbearer. What's Torchbearer do? Converts the bleed chance to ignite chance. That's huge for us. So, more fire the better. While we're going from point A to point B, everything's going to be getting ignited. Just a beautiful thing. Okay, again, if you have any questions about the point allocations for this skill, there will be a link down in the description so you can pull it up and reference it as you need and as you're leveling. Let's go to the next skill. Okay, guys, our next skill is the Smite skill. This is the bread and butter of this build. We're going to have Smite going off passively constantly on the screen once we get the Polaris's Sacred Light Swords equipped, in addition to our other skills, which are also setting off the Smite. So Smite, in addition to doing damage, it also, if it goes off in the vicinity that we are standing in, is going to heal us for 60 points of hit point damage. So by it constantly going off, we're constantly be getting healed while we're in close proximity to the mobs we're fighting. We'll start this skill off by putting 2 points into Blinding Flash, which will then give 20% blind chance and 20% hit damage with Smite against blinded enemies. Since Smite's going off so often, we're going to be constantly blinding our enemies, which means they won't be able to critically hit us. It means they're going to have an accuracy negation against us when they go to hit us, and it's just going to be incredible for this build. Blinding enemies is very big in this game, and by being blinded, we're going to take a lot less damage. So we'll put 2 points into this starting off, which will get us down to Sacrifice. Now, Sacrifice is a huge damage boost to us. The problem with it is it comes with a cost to your health. So as you can see here, with 5 points allocated, I'll be losing 15% of my current health. That won't be too bad because we're going to offset it with this node here, which is Atonement. Atonement will reduce the cost to our health by 60%. So we're not going to put 5 into this and then come over here. When we start off, we don't want to be dying because we don't have a lot of hit points. So we'll be putting 2 into Blinding Flash, coming to Sacrifice, putting 2 points into Sacrifice. Then we'll come to Atonement for the next 2 points. Then we'll come back to Sacrifice and put 3 points and max this out at 5. Then put the next point into Atonement. From Atonement, we're going to come down to Conviction, which will allow our Smites to do a base crit chance of +8, which would be 2% per point allocated. Now we're going to go ahead and put 4 points into this at this point because we want to be critting as much as we possibly can. Naturally, after we crit, we like for that to do more damage, which is what this node, Deep Impact, will give us. When it crits, you'll be doing 100% more crit damage. Going to be huge for us. Going to be doing a lot of damage with this and these two working together. From this point, we're going to come back to the first node that we were putting points into, Blinding Flash, and get that maxed out at 50%. And then we'll put our next skill point into Holy Fire. It'll be 25% to ignite per point. Now this is if you have 22 points allocated, which is what I have on this current build. If you get a +3 or 4 to your helmet, which you can get that affix added to your unique. If you get that and you're lucky enough to get that, my suggestion would be to put 2 more points into Holy Fire. And then your next point or 2 in the Conflagration, which will let you do more damage against ignited enemies. So that's Smite. If you have any questions about the point allocations, again, there will be a link down in the description for this. And let's move on to our next skill. Okay, guys, our 4th skill that we are going to allocate is going to be Holy Aura. Now, we can unlock this at level 25, but we won't be able to place it in our bar until level 35. This will be our 4th skill, and what this will do is it's going to passively help us gain 30% increased damage and 15% additional elemental resistances. Fantastic. We're going to have this passively running all the time. Can't beat that. We're passively running 3 of the 5 skills that we have in our bar. Can't beat that. So with this one, let's take a look at what it's going to give us. We'll put 2 points into Rhea's Devotion. It'll give us 10% ignite chance. Can't beat that for a fire build. We'll move down to Fanaticism, which will give us 9% attack speed. This will help our Warpath hit more often, which will help more Smites. We'll then move over to True Strike, which will give us a 40% increased critical strike chance. Can't beat that. Move down here to Extreme Zeal. Zeal will give us more critical multiplier for our critical hits and our critical damage. Once we get 3 points into that, we will come up here to Firestorm, which will increase our global fire damage by 50%. We will then move over to Flame Burst. Flame Burst is has a lot going on here. Your melee hits apply 10 stacks of fiery inquisition, and the melee hits of other allies doesn't really affect us if most of us will be playing solo. If an enemy reaches 60 stacks, the stacks are consumed to release a flame burst, dealing fire damage surrounding enemies. In other words, you're constantly going to be doing damage with this when you hit the flame burst. It's just additional damage that's going to help us do even more damage when we're up front and close with our Warpath skill and setting off the smites. After we get a point into that, we're going to come down here to Inner Flame. Inner Flame works with Flame Burst. Your melee hits apply an additional stack of firing position. If you are the one to get the final hit, which you always will be if you're playing solo, to unleash flame bursts on an enemy, it deals damage in an increased area. So basically, you're going to be setting this off more often and hitting more enemies. With your flame burst will be going off more often in a bigger area. And then finally, our last 2 points will be going to improve flame bursts, which will give us even more damage to the flame burst damage. So this is really awesome for us. It's going to be running passively. If you get into a big fight with a boss with a lot of hit points and doing a lot of damage and you're struggling, you can always activate this, which then you will do double these bonuses for 4 seconds. And then you'll have 6 seconds of cooldown where you'll just be doing the standard passive 30% increased damage and 15% additional resistances. Okay. If you have any questions on this, again, look at the link down in the description. I'll have a chart for how to put your points and allocate them into this skill. Let's move on to the last skill. Okay, guys, our 5th and final skill is Symbols of Hope. Now, Symbols of Hope is more of a defensive skill, which is why I wanted to wait until later in this build to put it in the 5th and final slot. We should be plenty good on survivability until we get to this point. We'll be able to slot this at level 50. The skill becomes available at level 15, so if you really wanted to replace this, put this in place of Holy Aura and switch to 2, you could do that. I myself didn't have any issues with doing it in this order, and this is what I would suggest for you. So Symbols of Hope. Each symbol that will ultimately have 3, each one will let us deal 3 additional fire damage and increase our health generation by 20% apiece, which would be 60%. So 9 additional fire damage and 60% health regeneration once we have the 3 symbols. And in addition to this, if we get into a tough boss fight or we end up having a tough mob that we're struggling with, we can activate this, which will then give us a total of 100 ward and 5% less damage taken per symbol. So 300 ward and 15% less damage for 3 seconds with a 12-second cooldown time. So use it if you need to. I probably ran this passively 95% of the time, which makes this another part of this build that's beautiful, that you don't have to be constantly firing off skills in order to get it to work. So let's go through the path and our point allocations and see where we're going to put them. I'm not going to talk a lot about each skill point allocation area on this, because it's after we get to 3 symbols, that's really what we're trying to do right off the bat. The quickest way to do that is to come this way. We'll put 2 points into Iron Symbols. We'll put 2 points into Enduring Hope, and then put 1 point into Tetragram, which gives us our 2nd symbol that we'll have available. From that point, our goal is to get at the 3rd symbol. We'll come down here. We'll put 2 points into Quiet Mind, 5 points into Invigorate, which will increase healing per symbol by 20%. So that'd be 60% increase healing, which is awesome. And then by the time we get here, we'll have our 3rd symbol active, which would be Polygram. So I guess once you get here, initially, you're only going to have 40% because you'll have 2 symbols, but it won't take long. You'll have your 3rd one, and then you'll be rocking and rolling with 60%. From this point, we're going to come over here and we're going to take Meditation. Now, Meditation doubles our health regeneration from symbols, but it only affects us. So since majority of us play alone and play solo, this will be very beneficial later in the game. We'll be at double the health regen from our symbols. So after this point allocation, we'll come over here. We'll put 4 into Empowering Symbols. Damage granted per active symbol plus 20%. That'll be huge. Take that times 3, 60% more damage granted through this skill is going to be great with our smites and with our Warpath damage we'll be doing. Then finally, we're going to come to Heavenly Justice. Increase crit chance per symbol, 16%, which equates to 48%. Can't get enough crit chance. Again, if you have any questions about these point allocations or how to put them in order, look down below at the link in the description. I will have a sheet up that you can pull up and use it for reference. Okay, now let's get into the fun part. Let's get into the equipment. Okay, guys, now let's get into the equipment for this build. Now, everything you see here, believe it or not, is level 48 or under requirement. So you'll be able to really go far with this build for very little investment in equipment. You're going to find all of these items in drops pretty regularly. I have some items down here which are kind of chase items. These can change based upon what you feel you need at the time. There's a few items here that I would say are definitely mandatory, and there's some items that are optional. But this is what I recommend. I'm not going to go into great detail about the legendary potential and what exalts you're looking to slam. I will have a link down in the description of this video with what I recommend for each item as far as what exalts you should slam into each or what the order of preference. So let's start off with the item that really makes this build go, and that would be the Polaris' Sacred Light. Now, as you look here, you can see the main stat on this that's really helping us out is a plus 42% chance to cast Smite on melee hit up to 3 times per second. So by using Warpath, we're going to be hitting at least twice a second, if not more. And so the chance for us to cast a Smite is extremely high. Now, you take that with dual wielding with another Polaris' Sacred Light, you've increased that chance even more. So you can see just how powerful this sword is and how important it is to this build. And at level 6, you have a chance for that to drop so early in the game, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to have a small segment after this equipment video showing you how to use the Forge with a Rune of Ascendance to try to get this sword quicker if you do not find it as a drop. That is basically for beginners, people who are new to the game. There's more ways than just drops to get these items. So a brief explanation. Please feel free to skip over that if you're an experienced player and don't need that guidance. So we got over the sword. As you can see, it does so much for this build. We will not be using the Chance to Smite when we cast it directly because we will be using this passively. You could cast it directly. I don't do it. I do so much damage with this build passively, letting these swords and Warpath work together to do that. I don't feel the need to do that directly. So let's go through the other items. We're going to be using Calamity because of the incredible fire damage it gives us. We have a chance to ignite ourselves with fire skills because if you kill something, you'll take 4 damage over the next 2 seconds, which is very minimal. You might be asking yourself, why do we want to do that? Well, it'll make sense when we get down to this item, Soulfire. As you look here and you can see, we have a chance to ignite enemies we hit as the implicit at the top. You look down through here, 9% more spell damage to ignited enemies. We're doing spell damage with Smite. Plus a 160% chance to ignite on hit with fire skills and necrotic skills. Well, Smite's a skill. Smite's doing fire. So is our Warpath. So we're going to be doing a lot of ignites thanks to this. 60% increased damage. If you can killed an enemy recently, you're going to be killing them quickly. So you're going to be doing 60% increased damage. Now, this is where Calamity and Soulfire work together. Is this next skill? 100% chance. Well, excuse me, 100% increased armor while ignited. So yeah, we're going to be ignited for 4 damage every 2 seconds. Big deal. It's worth it for the trade-off to get 100% increased armor, especially late game. This is going to really help us survive a lot better. Now, the next 2 skills here, the Hungering Souls, do not apply to us. It's basically for all the other suffixes and prefixes on this that gives us the help for what we need for this build. So these 2 work in conjunction with one another. Again, look, level 7. You're going to find this right off the bat. Level 34, you're going to find this fairly early in the campaign. Okay, for our Amulet, Evolution's End, which can give us +2 to all skills, which will be huge for us. And then some implicits. My implicits on this are not very good. Attributes are always helpful. Movement speed's always helpful. Resistances, of course, helpful. Of course, there's some other things it gives you here in the prefixes and suffixes. As you can see, has to do with the rift beast. I'm not going to get into that. You can read that. It helps you when you summon it. So that basically this can help us give us plus to our skills, which is why we're choosing this. Our chest plate will be Urzel's Pride. Again, early level 15. This gives us so many great things for a Sentinel/Paladin build. Attunement and Strength, which are staples for our skills that we're using in this build. Increased mana generation is always helpful, per 2% uncapped lightning resistance. Pretty solid piece. I won't get into it in great detail, but this is where you'll be putting the +3 to Warpath when you do find an Exalted has that on there, or 4. 4s are harder to find, of course, in 3s. I was able to find a 3 and slammed it on here and got this. So that'll be our goal for the chest piece. Let's move down to the rings. Our rings are really open to whatever works for you at the time. I'll have it down in the link in the description for what the stats I would prefer to have on that if I were you. My loot filter will also have it, so you'll find the items you need to put in these slots. Starting off, like, Phantom Grips are great because they give you critical strike chance and critical strike chance, increased critical strike chance and a flat critical strike chance, which is huge for our Smite skill. Again, level 14, easy to come by. You'll come by these fairly early. I'd recommend those, or whatever you find. You find a rare ring or something that has some good stats on it, use it. Like, none of these rings are in stone early on. More later on, you're going to need something that gives you a little bit more firepower, but early on in the campaign, whatever works with what you got going on. It helps you do more damage or survive with some resistances if you feel you need them. I personally don't look at resistances early on, but maybe you would. So yeah, Phantom Grips are a good option. And then I'll go into these other options down here once we go through all of the equipment items. For gloves, now these do stink as far as not being able to do critical strikes, but the trade-off is you get a chance, 25% to get haste for 1 second on hit, and you get more increased melee attack speed, which means your Warpath will be hitting more often. It's an early item. You might want to use these. A lot of people like these early on. I personally don't, because I want to do critical strikes with my Smite, but it's an item you could use. You'll probably be using an Exalted item here of some sort, or a rare item, depending on what you find. The ones that we're going to be using later on are more of a high-level items, so I don't have them here. I just want to show you there are items that we can use here that will help us get to where we want to be through the campaign. When it comes to boots, early on, you're going to want something that gives you speed. These are pretty good. These are level 48. These Bloody Exiles are pretty much a staple for most builds. A lot of movement speed. You're going to get strength, dex, and intelligence. I mean, can't get enough stats. All of them help us, right? So these would be great for the movement speed. Plus, if you can slam an Exalt on these for some even more movement speed, you're going to be better off even more so. Very solid boots. We've gone over to Soulfire already. Basically doing a lot of ignite and fire damage with this, and more increased armor when we are ignited. And then the belt. This is a pretty good item, but I found that we're doing so many smites, it's kind of redundant at this point. You can wear it. It's level 40. It's pretty solid. But again, you're going to come to a point when you get to the end game where you're going to have to switch this out, and you're going to have something that helps give you some more survivability. But early on, it's a very solid belt. 45% chance to cast Smite on hit. We're going to be hitting a lot with these two, and this will even give us even more smites. So it's like kind of overkill early in the game, but if you get it and want to wear it, have fun with it. It's pretty awesome. Yes, +8 to intelligence, chance to find potions, whatever, and 13 mana gain on potion use, whatever. So really the only thing on this that's really going to affect us to a large extent would be the chance to cast on Smite. So if you get it, wear it, try it out. If you don't like it, switch it out. You're not going to be losing many smites if you don't wear this belt, but it's also a fun belt to wear early on. So some chase items you'll find in the end game for the most part. I have an exalted item here. You kind of put in here what helps with your resistances. You probably want something that's going to help boost up your health for more survivability. If I use this in conjunction with the boots I'm going to show you next to help negate the critical strikes, damage from critical strikes, which basically if you get 100% reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes, you're negating 100%. So that's why I chose this belt. Again, this is kind of subjective to what you think you need at the time, and you'll know that by looking at your stat sheet and going from there. Again, I will put recommendations I have for this down in a link in the description below for each slot for items that you're wanting to slam and for exalts that you can put in these slots. So we'll put that back up here. These boots are amazing. They're very hard to find, level 67 to wear them. But the implicits are solid. You have a high movement speed, fire resistance. Definitely recommend slamming movement speed on any boot as priority 1. They come with increased movement speed, fire penetration with ignite. We're doing fire damage. This is only going to help with in every aspect of what we're trying to accomplish. Increased fire damage, chance to cast fire trail when you are crit, which is rare. Chance to receive a critical strike, you get a little bit more increased chance. So you could negate this with over leveling your critical strike avoidance. If you had, for this example, 113, you would be able to negate this negative part of these boots. 78% chance to reduce bonus damage taken from critical strikes. Now, if I combine that with my belt, I have a 98% chance reduced bonus damage taken. I just couldn't hit 100. I wasn't looking too hard. I figured 98 was good enough for what I was trying to accomplish with this build. It served me well. So that would be the boots I would recommend to look for when you find them, to incorporate that into your build. These gloves. I love these gloves. These gloves give you the chance to cast a stationary fire tornado. The tornado shreds their fire resistance each second, increases your fire damage, gives you more fire resistance and armor. And the implicit, you get more armor, and you also get more void resistance. So this just adds another element to this build that lets you really add fire effects to the screen and to burn stuff down. I absolutely loved it. It works great with Smite. It works great with our Warpath. It's just going to make things a lot more fun for us in the end game. Another ring option you could choose is after you get the Phantom grips, I would also recommend Sun Wreath, level 21. They give us helps with our fire. Look what we're doing up there in the implicit. Fire resistance, increased fire damage. The stats, chance to ignite on melee hit with our Warpath. Increased fire damage over time with our ignites. Increased melee fire damage. Going to be needing more damage with Warpath because it's the melee skill we're using. Flame Reave doesn't really affect us, but there's a lot of positives to this ring that'll help this build out. And of course, the end goal for any ring, for any class for the most part, is usually the red ring of Atlaria. And I was lucky enough to get 2 of them. That would be my end-game ring I would suggest. It's going to really help just everything. It just really buffs everything up that's important in the end game. Your resistances, mana regen, health regen. It speaks for itself. So from this point, let's move on. We're going to do a quick segue to the Forge and how you can use a Rune of Ascendance. If you are aware of how to do that and are familiar with that to try to get the sword, feel free to skip that and go to this next section, which will be our passive skills.
So if you're a new player and you're wondering to yourself, hey old Gandhi, how do I get the Polaris' Sacred Light Sword? It's not dropping for me during the gameplay, and I really want to get this build going. Well, there's another way versus just a regular drop that you can get this item. So what you'll need to do is you're going to need to farm until you get some of these Rune of Ascendances. Now what this will allow you to do, let you put any kind of item into the Forge that is not a set item, that is not a unique item, and there's a 1 in 10 chance of this becoming the sword we need. So the minute you get one of these, you want to put it in and try to ascend it. This time we didn't get lucky. Let's try it again. Look at that. Second try, we got the sword we needed to unlock this build. So it can be done. You just have to be patient, wait for it to drop in the wild, or wait for this Rune of Ascendance. Take any sword to put into here to try to make it into the sword we need. And once we get one of these, we're off and running.
Okay, let's take a look at the passive skills we're going to need for this build. Let's go over the Sentinel passives first. Okay, we're going to start off with putting 8 points into Juggernaut. That'll give us strength and some fire and void resistance, which will be helpful later on after the campaign. Next, we're going to put 5 points into Armor Clad. That'll give us 75 plus 75 armor and negative 10 damage taken from nearby enemies. Next, we're going to put 4 points into Valiant Charge. Basically, this will increase our cooldown recovery speed for movement skills, Lunge, and it will also give us 24 more health. From there, we're going to come over to Fearless, which will give us 8 more vitality and 40% health regen, which early on, that will equate to 6 health and 1 poison and necrotic resistance per point. We have 8, that'll give us 48 more health. Always valuable to have more health early on in the game. So from there, we're going to come way over here and we're going to get Blade Master. Now this will increase our sword attack speed. Cast speed, kind of irrelevant because we're not manually casting everything. Everything will be passive. So we'll get a lot of benefit out of this for our Warpath skill with our sword attack speed. And then once we have 2 Polaris Sacred Light Swords, then we will take Gladiator. That will allow us to equip the sword in each hand, or in one in our offhand, which we currently cannot do without this, and will also increase our attack speed while dual wielding by 20%. So that's what we'll put into the Sentinel passives. Let's look next to the Paladin passive tree. Okay, let's go over the Paladin passive skill point allocations. Okay, we're going to start off here with Defiance for the attunement and elemental resist that it gives. Our next one we're going to go into will be Conviction. We get a good amount of fire damage here along with fire penetration, which will be very helpful for the build. Next, going up to Phoenix Strike, which will give us an increased ignite chance. And fire penetration with ignite will be plus 20% after we put 5 points into this. So anything we can do with fire is going to be very helpful for the smites and for the Warpath in this build. Next, moving along, we're going to go to Ray and Strength, which gives us strength plus 5 and fire res shred chance per 2 strength plus 5%. We'll have a lot of strength with this build, so this will give us a good chance to shred the fire resist. So this will be our 4th allocation spot. And then we're going to move over here to Holy Precision. Holy Precision gives us a 100% increased crit chance and a 50% crit multiplier, and also gives us a base critical strike chance of plus 3 after we get 5 points allocated. This will be very big for us. We can't get enough crit with this build, and we can't get enough crit multiplier. It's just going to give us bigger numbers with Smite, which will be going off constantly. So all these skills points I'm putting into, we will put these in to the numbers you see on the screen. And then move on to the next one. So if you have any questions on this, just refer to the link in the description. All these will be laid out very easily for you to see for both this one and for the Sentinel passives. Wanted to add that because I forgot to add that in the last segment. Okay, so moving on, we're going to go over here to the Covenant of Light, which increases the Holy Aura and Symbols of Hope effect by 20%. Their increased effect while they're passive is going to be amazing for us because we're going to be using those 2 skills passively the entire time we play, only really activating them when we get a boss fight or against a difficult mob. Okay, next we'll be going into Reverence of Duality. This will give us increased health, increased damage, healing effectiveness, mana. Sure, we'll take it. Don't really need a bunch of mana with this build, but it's there. We'll take it. We'll put 12 points into that. Moving on, we'll come down here to the Covenant of Protection. This will give us more armor for survivability. Our mitigation applies to damage over time effects as well. And the 5-point bonus with this gives us health regen from the Symbol of Hope plus 5. So we're getting into the end of the point allocations for our build. And so these come in very handy because we're in the end game. We're going to need as much survivability as possible. So keep that in mind as we go to allocate these next ones. Moving up, we're coming up here to number 9, which is the Covenant of Dominion. Increases our fire damage, our move speed. 5-point bonus, increased mana regen from Holy Aura plus 25%. We'll take it. By this point, we're doing very well with mana regen, but it's on there. We'll take it. Why not? Okay, let's move on down here to Divine Essence. You have a chance to be granted Divine Essence each second while at high health, above 65% health. Divine Essences last 10 seconds and grant 15% increased armor and healing effectiveness. They also reduce damage over time taken by 5%. You can have a maximum of 3 essences, Divine Essences at once. So 5 points into this, plus 5 to detunement, and Divine Essence chance per second on high health 50%. So we'll be having these the majority of the time unless we take a big hit. We should be doing pretty good with this build. Don't have to deal with this much. This will be helping us more times than it's not. Okay, going on to the last allocations. I put these last points will be like your last 5 points from level 95 to 100. There's several options here. I went with more melee attack speed just because I want Warpath to do a little more speed. More speed equals more hits equals more chances for smite, more smites equals faster death of the mobs. You could put them here, which is where I went. You could also come down here, put them into attunement, which will give you more spell damage with your smite. You're kind of open on this where you want to put these last 5 points. I went here. I would recommend that, but feel free to put them where you want to. Okay, as I mentioned, if you have any questions on the order in which we will be adding these points, feel free to look at the link down in the description. I have something wrote up for that, for the passive allocations, not only for Sentinel, but also for the Paladin skill trees. Passive skill trees, excuse me. All right, let's move on to talk about idols and our blessings. Okay guys, let's go over the idols along with the blessings for this build. Now before I get into the idols, if you're a new player, please realize that in the beginning of the game you're going to find a lot of idols that really their main purpose is to help you with your resistances and maybe your health. There's really not a lot of benefit to the early game idols in my opinion. Use them as you need them. It's hard for me to put a guide together, or anybody for that matter, to put a guide together with saying this is the idol you need, because there's so many variances with these. Typically what I do is I wait till I get to endgame before I start focusing on that. And that's where the Weaver idols will start dropping. And the Weaver idols are very powerful for this build and for any build, really, once you get into monoliths and into the endgame system. So in the loot filter, which will follow after this segment, I will discuss more in depth about how to sort that out. But in this section, I'm going to go over what in endgame I would recommend, which is really simple when it comes to idols. You're basically looking for anything that gives you a high damage with smite. Now, it's going to be hard to get the secondary stat on this with something that's going to help us. In other words, this one's really good because it gives it the 31% chance to shred armor on hit with fire skills. You're going to have a hard time finding one that has a high percent damage with smite and a good fire secondary. This one I got lucky with. So if you see here, if I go over the ranges, 20% to 54% is what you can expect to get with the increased damage to smite. So there's a big range, and you're going to get a lot of these that are junk that you're just going to have to get rid of and look for a higher end one. Mine aren't the best, but they're pretty good. So if you look through here, like this one here, increased physical damage over time. That doesn't help me, but the increased smite damage, it does. And with as many smites as we have going on, that is the priority stat we're looking for on these large idols. So as you can see, these are all pretty much the same. I was focusing on the increased damage with smite with these. Yeah, and then when you get to Weaver's Weaver roll here at the end with the ward decay, and the one you're looking for this would be anything that helps with your critical strike chance would be my recommendation. Or if you want to go more into the ward build, you get into endgame, ward's good. Ward decay threshold, ward per second's good. It's up to you. Main thing with these large idols is to get with a higher percentage of smite damage on them. And then on your other idols, I'm looking for anything that helps my health at this point. 6% health gain on kill. That doesn't really help much, but the 6% increased health, 6, health regen with some health. Anything with health for the remaining idols is what I'd recommend for endgame with this build. Blessings, there's nothing in stone with these. These are pretty much going to be whatever you have a need for. So if you haven't found your red rings yet, you might need resistances. Go through, run all the monoliths, run through, kill the boss, unlock these, get these, and fill these in as you need them. As you can see, experience is great. For me, I was looking for red rings. I had a red ring. I had a ring blessing here. Chance to ignite. We're a ignite build. We're a fire build. Makes sense to put that there. One-handed drop rate. I'm looking for the Polaris' Sacred Light Swords, so I can take and try to get one with a high level of legendary potential. Stun chance, sure. Prefix shard, sure. Increase physical damage. I believe it gets converted to fire damage since I'm having the conversion in my Warpath tree. So I believe that is what is happening here, why I chose this one. Increase skill shard drop rate, sure. Cold resist, I needed some because I didn't have hardly any on my items. And then increase fire damage because we're a fire build. So again, there's not going to be a definitive guide from anyone to tell you exactly what you need here for the most part. A lot of these are up in the air depending on your gear and your resistances. So keep that in mind. And next, let's look into the loot filter. Okay, guys, let's go over the loot filter for this build. Now, disclaimer, I am not the world's most expert loot filter creator. This could have been done much neater, but I did it in a way that made sense to me. It works. It does what it needs to for this build. It does what it needs to in an early level, and it does what you need at a later level at endgame. So what I will do, I'm not going to go through each line here, but I will go through and show you what I have done, which ones need to be turned off after you reach certain thresholds with this build. So you're going to start off, all these will be checked. Everything in this loot filter will have a check mark next to it. However, as you start finding certain things, we'll start turning these off. For example, it's going to hide all normal items. Turn this off after the Precipice map level 13. This one hides all normal magic items, turned off, which it's in now, after you get decent rare gear. This one here gives you good starter mods, turn it off. Basically, 23 through 32, each one has a point, read it, and realize when you need to turn it off, which is what these are now, because I am in endgame, I do not need these. I have ran this with multiple characters, and it works very well. I tried to explain these the best I can to tell you when to turn them off. And I think it'll be a great help to you. So there will be a link to this down in the description in this video. There will be a link there. You can go there and download this, copy and paste it into your loot filter here. I will update this for Season 4 and beyond as needed. And I will do my best to update this and get it more cleaned up so it's a little more neat. But at the end of the day, it does what it needs to, and I hope it helps you out. So next, let's go into a little bit of gameplay before we wrap this up. Okay, guys, I'm going to do just a very brief, very short example of gameplay to show you how this works. This is a 150 plus monolith. To show you the gameplay, all I'm doing is running Warpath here and using Lunge to get from one mob to the next. So I'll just play here for a little bit to show you just how smooth this gameplay is, and this is what you can experience through the whole campaign and into the end game. Like, it's just pretty much the same gameplay. You just get more powerful as you level and get more skills, and nothing but fire. I mean, look at all the fires going on this screen. You can see the tornadoes going off. That's from the gloves. That's shredding their fire resistance. Should remember to clear this out before I click on this. Get to here, put this in. See, no problem taking them down. Yeah, so that's a quick example of the gameplay, guys. I don't want to sit and take up too much more time than what I have. Another note I want to make is if you don't play with a controller, I highly recommend it. This season was the first season I actually started using controller versus mouse and keyboard. I haven't 100% abandoned the keyboard. There's many things I can still do faster getting around and making selections and such with my mouse and keyboard, but as far as gameplay, you can't beat it, especially for this build. Like, you can just do everything with this controller so seamlessly. It just becomes a natural extension of your hand. So I highly recommend it if you don't use controller. And yeah, so that's some gameplay. So let's wrap this up and go from there. Thanks, guys. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this lengthy video. I do apologize for the length, but I felt it was important that in order to get everything out and have a clear explanation for new players and people who are unfamiliar with some of the mechanics of this build, it was important to go through as much as I possibly could to help explain it, to avoid any questions and to make your gameplay experience much better. I sincerely want to thank you for taking the time to watch my video. It really means a lot to me. If you could please like and subscribe to this channel, it'd really help out a lot. I have a lot of great ideas, I think, that I really want to put out to help the rest of the community enjoy not only this game, but other games. Then your subscriptions and your likes help me go a long way with that. Feel free to leave any comments or questions you have down below in the comments section of this video. I'll try my best to read them all. I'll answer as many of them as I possibly can. If you have any suggestions on how to take this build to the next level, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it. I'm sure there's equipment pieces or skill allocations that might make this tick a little further. Maybe make me go in some deeper corruption and really take it to the next level. And I'll tell you what, if I read your suggestion and it's something that I use in a future video on this build, I will comment and give a shout out to your username on YouTube in that video. So again, thank you so much for your time in watching this. It means a lot. And until our next meeting, I'll see you at the Prancing Pony. Take care.